Hi everyone, Dr. Yoshiram here, and I want to share the results of our recent MAH UBI methylene blue study that we did at Oasis Family Medicine. Quite a number of you who are watching this were probably participants. We had a great turnout. Thank you to Heidi. Thank you to our nurses. Thank you to the entire Oasis team for helping make this possible. I love the data that we got. Whether it's positive or negative, it's still data. And so I love getting objective results. Thank you to every one of you who are watching this who actually did participate. We had right around 40 people. So 40 people tallied in the results. A couple people had to withdraw for various reasons, just as always happens with any kind of study. So this is my little beginning thank you page. I did put together a little PowerPoint here that we'll go through. And this is going to be unedited, so I am just going to kind of bumble through it. And yeah, so let me see, how do I operate this thing? And the button is not going to the next page. I think my computer is just frankly a little slow though. Okay, I'm gonna have to click. Okie dokie. So I figured out how to use this. Ultimately, I think from your perspective, you're probably wondering, how effective is this therapy? Is it worth your time? Is it worth your money, right? So got to spend money, got to spend your time, and is it even going to work? That's really what you're wondering, I imagine. And it's what I want to be able to convey is the information. Is this an effective therapy? Is it worth your time, and is it worth your money, right? I've said this so many times, just because I've recommended something for a long time doesn't mean I'm going to continue. I will stop recommending something if it doesn't look like it's worth recommending. I'm on this planet to learn truth, to discover truth, and I have no problem backing off of an old idea that I may have had for a number of reasons. So I just want to share that with you. I'm obviously biased, just as everyone is. I want the therapies that we have at Oasis Family Medicine to work, but at the same time, I'm not going to just stick to them if they don't, or if there's something better that we can offer that's reasonable effort, cost, time, all of it. I'm constantly evaluating the pros and the cons of all types of therapies, both existing and new, that I would love to bring into Oasis for all of your benefit. So without further ado, you kind of got to watch to the end of this to figure out if it is an effective therapy. I'm going to keep you hooked. And yeah, we'll come back to, is it worth your time and is it worth your money? So what is this study? The idea is to look at UBI, which is light therapy, ozone, and methylene blue. And it's really, okay, methylene blue was the third piece added on. Ozone, anytime we're talking about ozone, it's actually ozone and oxygen, O3 and O2. So I don't want to just leave out oxygen, even though we'll call it almost always refer to it as ozone. It's ozone and oxygen. And then with the UBI stands for ultraviolet blood irradiation, but it's really, in this study with the machine that we're using, it's actually that plus the full visible light spectrum. So might just say UBI, or it might just say light, but it's really UBI plus the full visible light spectrum. Let me move my face over here. So this study, and I'm going to try to go through this quickly. I'm not, this is not a scientific conference presentation, so I want to make it light, pun intended, and easy to understand. So the way this study worked, for those of you who did not participate, I actually want, like, excuse me, let's go highlighter. So there were 6 IVs during this study, and the first IV would come in and the person would get just light therapy. This is not supposed to happen. So we'd take blood out of you, put it into a bag. Okay, my laser pointer is working. But somehow it clicks back. Okay. So we take blood out of you, put it into a bag, and then it drips through the light machine. Okay, I'm just going to stop using that. The second IV, and we draw blood before that treatment and right after that treatment. Second IV, you come in, we draw blood, put it in the bag, and it runs, first we put ozone into the bag, and then it runs through the light. So it's light plus ozone. Third IV, it's light plus ozone, plus we add 10 milligrams of methylene blue. Fourth IV, light plus ozone plus 20 milligrams. Fifth IV, light plus ozone plus 30 milligrams. Now, IV number 6 was really just like a thank you, and people had options for which type of IV they wanted to do that with. So I did collect data, blood before and after, but they're not figured into these results because it's different treatments, and I don't have the bandwidth to present it all perfectly. Is this actually the next slide? Okay. So what is UBI? Now, this is a great book, Invisible Cure, Fix Your Immune System, Fix Your Body, The Definitive Guide to UBI, or Ultraviolet Blood Irradiation, by Tom Lau. So this is just UBI. This is not even counting all of the full light spectrum wavelengths. But what does UBI help with? It helps with all of these conditions. I mean, you can just read autoimmune conditions, pulmonary conditions, infections, heart, cardiovascular, cancer, diabetes, neuro situations. So it's a very extensive list. Here's some resources. Yes, take a gander. You can pause this if you want to go look at them, but I just want to throw it out there that really good resources do exist. Now, UBI, so ultraviolet blood irradiation, is UVC, UVB, and UVA, or A plus B plus C. So this is the light spectrum here, going from 100 nanometers, is UVC, these UVB, and then UVA. And this is the ultraviolet spectrum. We cannot see these with human eyes. I think it's what bees can see, UV. Some other animals can as well. We cannot. We, with the human eyeball, can see basically from, call it 400 to 700 nanometer wavelengths. And that's the visible light spectrum. And then we also, human eyes cannot see infrared. These are wavelengths that are longer than 700 nanometers. There's near infrared, and then it gets into far infrared. This therapy does not include infrared. This is ultraviolet and then visible light. Now, each one of these wavelengths from approximately 400 to approximately 700, every wavelength has its own little unique function. So it's almost like 300 little medications within here, okay, when our body is exposed. Now, sunlight, you can see this big free photobiomodulation device in the sky. It gives all of these, and it's why sunlight is paramount to optimal health, optimal human health, and we are so sunlight deficient. I myself have to really work to get enough sunlight. I don't even get as much as I'd like, but I have typically it's an inside job, an office job. And so it makes it harder. So I have to be much more diligent to get that. Now, blue light, 400 to 520 nanometers, right in this region. It does these certain things. There's actually a lot, and it's basically, it helps the quality of the red blood cells, it helps the immune system, and it helps inflammation. Green light basically does the same thing. I did highlight a few little ATPase synthase. This is energy. This is energy in the body. So it actually does increase energy. You can take a look at that. I'm not going to read it all, but it does a lot of good stuff. Same with red light. It helps with oxygenation, microcirculation, and immune system, and a heck of a lot of other stuff. Here's some references. Again, there's a few really good visible light spectrum, especially red light and yellow light and orange light books out there now that are even for the lay person. Totally blanking. Oh, there's a really good one. Sorry, I should have had that prepped. But needless to say, there's tons of references. Now, on to ozone, O3. 3 oxygen molecules. O2 is what we breathe. O3 is what we can turn in. We take an electric spark and add it to the oxygen. Poof, it breaks some of the O2 breaks into singlets, and then some of those can attach to other O2s to create O3 or ozone. And you do have to be careful when you're Googling or PubMeding ozone, because so much of it will come out about smog-related devices and how much you can detect ozone to detect smog levels. It's two separate things. I've explained this in many videos before. Don't get confused. You want to look at the therapeutic benefit of ozone when you're doing research. But it is actually very well studied at this point. Many different resources. I threw up just 2 resources there, but it helps so much in the body. What does ozone do? I put this together. It basically helps our body create its own antioxidants. Here in red, it helps everything red blood cell and energy. And then this blue has more to do with the immune system and inflammation cascade pathways. So cytokine system and immune system, and it just balances the force, as I like to say. Here, I just threw this in. I have a picture of blood pre-ozone and then after ozone, so you can just see the visible difference for those of you who may not have actually had it done yet. Methylene blue, this is not a lecture on methylene blue. I really want to get to the results, but it has very good benefits when it comes to killing certain infections, and then at the mitochondrial level, increasing energy. And that is what it is good for. Now, we have done, for those of you who have been keeping up on this stuff, kind of cool to think back, actually. I never, opening Oasis Family Medicine, for those of you who do not know, I started it in 2011, and I really thought it was just going to be me, a medical assistant, and one front office person. I never really had a plan or a vision to grow Oasis Family Medicine. Just kind of did it because it seemed like the community was wanting that. And I certainly never envisioned doing studies at my little clinic. And yet, of course, I also never envisioned devising an EBU machine and getting a patent on it and whatnot. So it's been a fun journey. But in 2022, we did our first real study, and that was an EBU study. So, and that showed ESR lowering of 135%, which is pretty, oh man, this will not let me, I don't know how to use my laser pointer or highlighter. Figure that out later. Sorry, I thought I knew how to do this without flipping the slides. So ESR, it lowered it by 135% each EBU. And it lowered HSCRP by 13%, both phenomenal numbers. Now, ESR stands for erythrocyte sedimentation rate, and it is really a blood coagulation or stickiness factor. When blood is not healthy, when body is not healthy, there is more, the red blood cells become stickier. And anytime, I mean, almost any time we can lower that amount of stickiness and create blood cells, red blood cells that just kind of almost repel each other, so they give themselves space, that's a really good thing. And then high sensitivity CRP, C-reactive protein, this is a generalized inflammation marker. Anytime we can lower that, that's a good thing. So these were cool results to see. And then, but that was, I'm forgetting how many participants, but it was about 20 participants, but actually 6 of them were like from another clinic, and then I think 14 were from Oasis. Not all of them did more than 1 round. Some people only did 1 round. Most of the people in our office did 3 rounds of EBU. And then in 2023, we were able to do one that was just at Oasis Family Medicine, which is kind of nice, kind of good and kind of bad in a way. Won't get into that, but we had 20 people. 19 of them actually finished all 3 rounds, and then one, I think, did 2 sessions, but had to leave the country, so they didn't do the 3rd, as I recall. Similar-ish results. The SED rate decreased by 124%, so it's kind of neat to see the EBU. It's like, okay, we can probably say legitimately that it lowers it by 120%, 120, 130%-ish. Now, fibrinogen, this is another blood stickiness marker, and it lowered by 24%, which is very significant, say that. Now, oh, I did a typo here. This should read 2024. So it's like 2022, we did EBU round 1, 2023, we did EBU round 2, and then 2024, we did this MAH plus UBI plus methylene blue study. Now, I will say the EBU automatically included UBI as well. So just keep that in mind. So again, just reminding you, the study, the first one was light, second IV was light plus ozone, third one was light plus ozone plus 10 milligrams of methylene blue, and then light plus ozone plus 20 milligrams of methylene blue, and then light plus ozone plus 30 milligrams of methylene blue. And we had 40 people give us results. So these are the results. So I only put in what, we ran a CBC, a complete blood count, and a CMP, a complete metabolic panel. So there's a few other results, but just from like looking at the literature before, I didn't expect results to be that significant when it comes to like white blood cells or most of the electrolytes. So I stuck in here, we run those full panels, A, just to make sure we're not screwing people up, but B, just because those are panels that Quest automatically does. What I was interested in was the SED rate again, because I wanted to see how this compared to EBU. And then that was the big one. Now, because of cost, like I can't do, and really it's because you all don't want to pay more than you need to or should, and so it's kind of this balancing out of grant funding or anything like that for this. This was totally Oasis and Oasis patient funded. So on the fifth study, I should have listed it out here, but it was like CBC, CMP, just like all of the other ones. But then we also included ferritin, fibrinogen, the CRP, and then apolipoprotein B, which is a lipid marker. I had heard from some functional medicine cardiologist how EBU is lowering people's cholesterol. And so I just kind of was like, okay, let's throw apolipoprotein B in here. It's reasonably priced, and it's a significant marker of disease. And then throwing in the GFR just because that was I didn't show it on the previous slide, but that was an interesting, a positive, like a good result from the EBU was that it improved the GFR kidney function by a good 9% in one of the rounds and then 11% in the other round. So we can see here, first IV, where it was just light, ESR is decreased, which is a good thing, by 58%. Second one, when you add the light plus ozone, 67%. And then once the methylene blue was added on, it was still way down, though not quite as good, at 48%, then 64% with the 20 milligrams, and then 55% with the 30 milligrams. I threw these in. GFR I would say it's not really that much improved. I mean, if you average all of these out, you could say maybe it's improved by 1 or 2%, but really I wouldn't make any clinical decisions versus the EBU very clearly improved the kidney function. Okay, MAH does not. MAH, EBI, methylene blue does not improve kidney function. What I did find very interesting though, because on the fifth one where I wanted to splurge on one of these IVs and do a little bit more testing, and sure enough, CRP lowers by 10%. Ferritin. Ferritin is, it can be an iron storage marker, or it can be an inflammation marker. So in this case, when we're just going pre to post IV, it's not going to have anything to do with iron storage. It's going to be an inflammation marker. So 10% improvement in inflammation, blood stickiness, fibrinogen, 13% improvement, and then apolipoprotein B, super fascinated, decreased by 11%, which is a good thing. Get my face out over. So here, this is the MAH study. These I actually added in kind of in reverse, so 2022. So you can see here, and this is really the crux of this presentation, I guess. ESR, it's the one test that was done on like everything. Well, GFR, the kidney function was as well. So kidney function, we'll do that first. 9% improvement, 11% improvement. Here, it's kind of a little bit all over the board, but average it out, call it 1 or 2% improvement. Not nearly as good as EBU. ESR, so 2022 study, improved it by 135%. 2023 EBU study, improved it by 124%. Here, we're seeing everywhere from 48 to 67% improvement. So I think that what we can say is, MAH is approximately half as good at lowering ESR compared to EBU. Maybe it's, I also don't, I don't know how to interpret this completely because these are still small studies. Like round 1 showed for EBU in 2022 showed a 14% improvement in CRP. That was that was only 19 patients. Okay, 14% improvement. CRP, 10% improvement. Now this was 40 patients. So I think you can say, okay, I think we can very legitimately say, like almost everything here says EBU, MAH, UBI, methylene blue, they all help the body's physiology. That I feel very confident because every number here is trending in a good direction, other than the GFR shows -3% on this one IV. However, it's -3, like that's basically zero. I would call that not statistically significant. None of the GFR for this recent MAH study would I call significant. What is interesting is, okay, the UBI light, 58% improvement here in ESR. Light plus ozone, 67%. Seems like it went up a little bit. Now, once we add on the methylene blue, the low dose, 10 milligrams, it actually came down. It's lower. It's still good, still trending, almost 50% improvement. Like that's still phenomenal. But is it actually better to leave out the methylene blue 10 milligrams? I don't know. I don't know that this study is powered enough to say that. 20 milligrams, it jumps back up, way back up to 64%. 30 milligrams comes back down. It's kind of in the middle, So I wouldn't overreact and say, I don't think this tells us anything about is methylene blue good to add on or not. What I can say is that I would never claim that adding on methylene blue to the light and ozone improve the ESR. I would never say that. However, methylene blue, remember, we're not really doing that for inflammation so much. Methylene blue from the literature, its strength comes in being a anti-infection. So someone with a bladder infection, like an obvious bacterial bladder infection, methylene blue can basically just nuke that infection, okay, on direct contact. However, methylene blue is really, its beauty is to improve the function of the mitochondria, which improves energy, ATP production, NAD production. So that's what this test doesn't tell us. And unfortunately, there's not really great, inexpensive testing to test ATP and NAD levels. I really wish there was. So I don't want some people are going to look at this without listening to what I'm saying and say, oh, well, adding on methylene blue is not worth it. Well, we don't add on methylene blue to help ESR. I never did that, okay? I was wondering if it would, but we add on methylene blue to help the mitochondria, help the energy of the system, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. Coming down here, so on the fifth one that includes methylene blue, it improves CRP, improves ferritin. Another blood stickiness marker is D-dimer. When somebody has a blood clot, this is something we test. Now, D-dimer was lowered by 23%, which seems significant. Again, we got 40 people here in this study, so I'm feeling pretty confident to say that it lowers D-dimer as well. Another one, AST and ALT, these are liver enzymes. I had no idea what to expect on this, but kind of interesting in a way. Every one of these IVs, it helps to improve some AST and ALT in a good direction. However, I don't know that I would say too much. The reason is because we're ranging from -3% all the way up to -20%. That is, what is that? Like almost a 9-fold difference. So when I'm seeing results kind of all over the board, and even if you just look at the methylene blue ones, it's like from -3 to 15, that's a 5-fold, or 19, that's a 6-fold difference. So this just seems kind of a lot more all over the board to me. So I would hesitate to say, oh, this is going to help your liver enzymes for sure, versus ESR, it's like, that's going to help you for sure, whether we're talking about EBU or the MAH light or with or without methylene blue, right? It's going to help you. All of the inflammatory markers, it helps. I feel very confident in saying that. I'm not going to say anything about it affecting kidney function. Now, EBU, I'll say it probably improves kidney function. Um, and then, oh yeah, when you're comparing EBU to MAH, because that's another thing that people want to know. Okay, fibrinogen, it's kind of like half-ish of what EBU round 2 showed. So both improve it. But I think we can say that comparing an MAH, one way I use to describe it is it's like a little mini EBU. I think that's very accurate. I think it's appropriate to say that with regards to ESR, with regards to inflammation, not with regards to kidney function, but with regards to inflammation and blood stickiness. I think we really can say that. So this is exciting to me. I mean, I think I can legitimately say an EBU is maybe kind of like 2 to 2.5 MAHs. Now, what I didn't show here, but what I can see from looking at the data is that I still believe that EBU, like a session of EBU, lasts in your system longer than an MAH. So there is some beauty. It's not just a straight up conversion of one EBU is about 2 to 2.5 MAHs, because I think the EBU lasts a little bit longer. You're still getting, I forget, when you're looking at the total amount of ozone, now you're getting the same amount of light in both treatments. You can get the same amount of methylene blue in both treatments, but the amount of ozone that one gets is a lot more in EBU. And that's probably why the effects seem to last longer, a little bit more profound. So I'm going to kind of throw it out there. I think an EBU is probably closer to like 3 or 4 or 5 MAHs. Now, just on a purely ozone dosing, it's probably the equivalent of about 10 to 20 MAHs. Real world, though, both of them have the light, which obviously is very useful. I mean, to see this ESR improve nearly 60% is super phenomenal just off of light. So pretty dope. Again, I didn't really know what to expect. It's actually a little bit scary to do a study based off of a service that we recommend that we make money off of, and Oasis makes money. It's not just to support me, but it's like our entire team. We have, I don't know how many team members now, but it's like 12 to 15 team members at Oasis. So this is our livelihood. If it came back not so favorable, it'd be like, oh, dang, what do we do? So, I am definitely biased, and yet I am also super happy to always progress with the time and with the data that we can glean. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who did participate this, both the Oasis team and all of you amazing patients and clients. Thank you for sticking with us during this. Kind of on that front, I will mention, I almost forgot to mention this, but early on in the study, it seemed like one of our methylene blue batches was not right. I tried very hard to figure out what it was. I always want to know exactly what's going on when something doesn't work right. Just like in the beginning of the EBU therapy, it's like we developed this machine in our office, really without anybody else's guidance, just my brain power and Callie's brain power mostly, and nursing brain power. And then when we rolled it out to patients, certainly had a few hiccups along the way. It was kind of part of the deal. And so, again, we have this bad methylene blue batch, it seems like, and I do not know what exactly was going on. But a few of you had some bad reactions to it. I think everybody did okay in the long run. Um, but so just want to apologize for that. Again, I don't know what went on there. We changed brands right away and never had an issue thereafter. But I just want to kind of call that out. I don't want to gloss over it or pretend it didn't exist or happen. So what does an IV of any type do in the blood? I just always throw this up in like every IV presentation because I love it so much. This is a BodyWorks photo of the blood vessels in the human body. And so when you're doing a little intravenous therapy, sticking a needle in here and maybe a needle in here, where's all that stuff going? It is going everywhere in the body. And then look at how many blood vessels. I mean, it makes sense that it would go in, tons would go into the lungs because that's where it's got to get its oxygen on a normal basis. But then check out how much goes to the brain. Like, it's just so incredible. I love this stuff. So how effective is this therapy? I think we went over that well enough. It seems like it's extremely effective. And then, just from a symptomatic standpoint, I mean, some people, I don't want to pretend that everybody feels like this amazing, oh my God, I'm so glad I came in here. Because some people don't notice anything. Some people are kind of like that in life in general. It's like, boom, what? Like some people just don't notice that. And then other people are just so exquisitely sensitive to everything under the sun. And so some people notice amazing benefits from this therapy. Some people don't notice it, but it sure as heck shows up in the labs. And, actually, something else, I mentioned this on going over like the last EBU study, but we have a lot of healthy patients, relatively healthy patients who opted into this study, which is fantastic. Those kind of individuals, though, actually bring these numbers down, because if you're starting out with like a really good ESR, so a really good ESR is like 2 or 3, okay? I don't think the lab doesn't even register at 1, okay? I call anything like 6 or above abnormal. Once it gets above like 12 or 14, it's like really not good. So many of our patients come in with ESRs of 2 before the therapy. So it goes from 2 before and then to 2 afterwards. Well, we're going to get a 0% improvement. And so what I should have done, now that I'm blabbing this out, is I should have counted how many people or how many sessions, because this was 5 sessions times 40 people. That's 200 sessions. So that's another reason why I feel like a lot of this is very statistically significant. I didn't hire an actuary to Excel and calculate away everything, but 200 IVs here. This is what this is representing. And so that's phenomenal. That's why these are very trustworthy numbers. Again, not totally accurate. I'm sure if we did it again, it'll go up to 70%, or maybe it only shows 35% improvement, right? But the gist is there, I think. However, what I should have done, what I wish I had done before recording this, is count how many of those 200 sessions were actually normal before, right? And then almost do like a separate calculation for those that were even just 3, kind of going from 3 down to 2, or right, much less everybody higher than that. So that's really what I would love to do. Like if you have an ESR, if you have inflammation, right, then what? How much of a percentage can this improve? And that's kind of cool to think about, because these numbers would shoot way up if we took all the healthy people out of this study. Like healthy people ruined this study. Not really. It's wonderful for healthy people too, because there's a whole bunch of markers that we're not testing, right? So is it worth your time? Is it worth your money? Those are 2 questions I cannot answer for you. What I can give you is the data, and to kind of give you a pros and cons, and including the con would be it's your time and it's your money. But those are really personal questions that only you can answer. I really just wanted to show you how effective is this therapy. How many participants? I mentioned already, 40 over 5 sessions that are included in the results. That's 200 IVs exactly. Pretty cool. I just mentioned, okay, I did make myself a note. I just mentioned how healthy people probably brought those numbers down, meaning not as makes the study not look as good as it really could be if only sick people were in the study. So it's kind of like the sicker someone is, the better. And I can tell you, just remembering looking back at the results, it's like someone who had a 20, it would come down probably to a 6. So you're looking at like 300, 400% improvement, which that's just massive. I mean, that's hugely massive. So I'm glad I just mentioned that. I mentioned EBU has UBI built into it as well. I just wanted to make sure. Methylene blue, again, from those numbers, it doesn't look like methylene blue is useful. However, it's working on a different situation, the mitochondria, the NAD and ATP production, which is something that we did not test in this study. Safety of UBI, methylene blue, and ozone. I actually made this presentation a little while ago. I don't remember if I did put in the forward and backward button are on the white, and I cannot see a thing. Oh my God. Okay, so ozone, super safe. I will just throw this up here. We run G6PDs on everyone beforehand. These are kind of like by the book. Frankly, blood thinner medications, it's more important to just know that someone's on it. People can still do this. We've done EBU on people with blood thinners, never had any issues. Low platelet count, you'd have to have a really low platelet count, not just a low platelet count, but a really, really dangerously low platelet count for us not to do this. I think probably overactive, you'd have to be like having a really, really, really overactive thyroid, like in thyroid toxicosis type of situation, which is super rare. That's the situation where I wouldn't do ozone on you. If someone's G6PD is really, 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 really low, then we would just give you a lower dose of ozone. It's not that you can't do ozone therapy. We have a few patients who have that situation going on. They do fine with ozone as long as we don't give them too much. Pregnancy, I'm just supposed to say no ozone in pregnancy for medical legal reasons, even though I gave my wife ozone when she was pregnant with our first one, Kalea, and she's a super athlete, like no joke, serious super athlete. And I just kind of have a feeling it's actually because she got ozone. I think ozone turned on her athletic genes in utero. So that's an N of 1. I have no idea if that's true, but yeah, I wouldn't actually do this on someone else who's pregnant. And then this is an interesting one. I feel like this is something that we actually could be a little bit, like in our office, could be a little bit more aware of. If someone is having a severe histamine response, probably best not to do ozone. I feel like there's been a couple situations over the last decade where ozone may have actually made a couple of histamine responses worse. And that's something that I was not aware of when I first learned about ozone. And really, I'm just like learning a little bit more about it. And I feel like looking back, we've had a couple, and by a couple, I mean like maybe 2 or 3 in a decade, where the ozone may have made their histamine response a little bit worse. Upcoming studies, oh yeah, at Oasis Family Medicine, once you start, you just can't stop. And sorry staff. These things take a lot of work to coordinate, and we still mess up a little bit because we're not a study center all designed just to do these. But it looks like we will be doing a UBI study, a UBI alone type of study. I'm super stoked because as you may remember, that those results just from UBI, that just the light therapy, were pretty darn impressive. So that was one thing. I mean, I'm yeah super intrigued by that. I'd love to do an ozone. Like we have EBU, kind of the creme de la creme version of ozone. We have MAH, major autohemotherapy, and then direct ozone, which we don't do too much because there's a little bit of a medical legal issue there. Though I think if we did it in a study format or really diligent, it would be really fascinating to do a little bit of testing using kind of differentiating those three types of ozone therapy. Could dial that in a little bit more, right? It's like EBU is the equivalent of maybe 3 to 5 MAHs. What is direct ozone? Because direct ozone is very easy. It's more affordable because you're not getting hooked up. It's a lot easier. And so that would be neat to be able to offer direct ozone injections at a much more affordable price to folks and yet have it still move the needle. So that'd be fun to do. I would, one of our super common IVs is the immunity IV. It's cold, flu, winter, fall season. People are changing, detox reactions are occurring. So immunity IV is just kind of the standard high dose vitamin C with vitamins and minerals. I would love to see what that does in a study format. And then what I really want to do is like check some toxicity labs as it relates to EBU specifically. The issue is that those labs tend to be more expensive. So, again, I haven't applied for any grants. That seems like a nightmare. But that would be fun to do. So I have ideas percolating up here. So stay tuned because so far these studies have really borne out to really prove what it is we do in certain ways. And I think that's neat. And I just love the pursuit of knowledge and more truth. And so thank you everyone I'm going to skip over that. Not important. So again, thank you so much. Sorry this was a little bit longer, got a little long-winded, but again, thank you. I appreciate every one of you out there so much. And hopefully y'all learned about something useful about this. Please spread this knowledge around, like send this to some of your friends who you think could benefit. If they're a little bit more skeptical, like have them watch this, so many, it's so shocking. Like Oasis Family Medicine is like this little gem in Montrose, North Glendale, and almost nobody knows we exist. And we have capacity for more IVs, so I feel like there's a huge hole. Like people locally do not know that we exist. So I would just appreciate so much if you helped get this out there for your friends and family, for their sake, for everyone's sake, really. So take care. Thank you.